Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up and welcome in. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. I am your host, Eric Romoff. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav. He is the conductor of the Green Screens Media Train. He is Dr. William Cannon on Twitter. He is Mr. Jay Heinrich. And with us, as always, the captain of our ship, MC Holland 34 on Twitter, Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, I'll kick off with you. We're heading into a huge slate on a Saturday. We've got all those pesky NFL games out of our way. DraftKings putting a little bit more money on the board for college basketball. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, a little more money. Football's gone, so why don't we just double it up on the pull-up jumper? I feel good. This slate is different than the last few that we've covered. We have some interesting totals along with interesting pricing, which hasn't always been the case. So, yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll, man. It's going to be some great action, some pivotal games when it comes to just – bubble and seeding and things like that. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun one, man. Jay, what's your take on this big Saturday?
Hey, you said 10K. You piqued my interest, good sir.
Yes.
We've got the lineups on reserve, getting ready to have these good conversations to letting everybody know what the best plays are going to be. I'm excited for it, excited to be here, and excited, Eric, to once again get into this pull-up jumper, sir.
Yeah, that pull-up jumper, like we talked about off the top, is now a 10K to first prize pool. So love seeing those dollar amounts continue to walk up. We've also got two bonanza seats up for grabs. Number 37, I think that's a $30 qualifier. There's a $95 qualifier to get into number 38. So those tickets are still getting punched on this Saturday. And on the board, 12 full games. A lot of them are games that are going to have impact on the postseason tournaments, on tickets being punched to March Madness, and many of them are going to be featured in our showcase here. Before we jump in, we've got Jody Grant checking in on YouTube. Jody, appreciate you swinging through. Definitely enjoy the show tonight. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments, and we will kick off with that showcase game. The very first one, the highest total on the board, 162 implied points between the Wake Forest Demon Deacons heading to Miami to face off against those Canes. Miami is the favorite here, 85-77, according to KenPom. We will start with the underdog. That's the Demon Deacons. They come in at 17-9 on the season, 9-6 in conference play. Pretty solid offensively, 27th in efficiency there. About middle of the road in the defensive ranks, and 62nd in tempo. So playing at a decent enough clip. A lot of guys seeing some pretty considerable price tag increases. So, Mike, for the Deeks, who's catching your eye?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that always catches our eye when we click the Demon Deacons here is Tyree Appleby. But the price is what's catching the eye this time. He's up to 9,600. So let's kind of preface the way that this slate looks. You got 24 players that are 8K or more, but you've got a bunch of value because we have the Castleton injury. You've got Shannon, who's out that Jody spoke of. That opens up the Illinois value. Cleveland's questionable for Florida State. And then you got the questionable guys on Tennessee. So although there's some pricey guys, and Appleby being one of them, we can make a case that you can kind of play whatever lineup you want. So that's pretty interesting. So for me, Appleby, not going to be afraid to play him now that we have two of the studs on the slate ruled out. At 9,600, it's kind of scary. I know a couple of shows ago I said I didn't know if I could play him at 9K, but this total is massive. There's going to be a ton of fantasy points. He's going to play 40 minutes in this game unless he somehow gets into foul trouble. And even then, they're not afraid to play him with two fouls. So a massive usage rate, 28%. We've seen him put up a 63 a few games ago. Can get routinely into the 40s. I love it. High assist rate. Just what's there not to like? Shoots 36% from three. Yeah, if let's say if Castleton hadn't gotten hurt and Shannon hadn't been ruled out with the concussion, it'd probably be a little bit tougher to get to him. But that's not the case. So I can comfortably click his name at 9,600, knowing that, I have some backup value pieces and a lot of them to choose from. So we'll talk about, those guys as we kind of go through the show. If you're not playing Appleby and want to save some coin, you can definitely do that because there's a significant price drop between the next guy, and it is a guy who was typically fourth in pricing for most of the year, and now he's up to the second highest price on this team because he is shooting 1,000 threes a game, and he is making half of those, what it feels like. 40 of those, 400 of those, shooting 40% for three. That's Damari Monsanto, 7,800. That's terrifying. If you want to play him, I get it. I don't know how many people are going to go to this well just based on this price point. Look, could he get to 40? Yeah, but I don't think it really, you're completely devastated if you don't have him and he goes for 38.40. So, I liked him much better when he was, right at 7K or just under 7K. Massive shot rate. He was going to take a ton of threes in this game. 22 and 28 in the last couple of games, right? So if I'm playing 20 lineups tomorrow, which I certainly am, I may throw him in one, more of a 1 out of 20 play for me. I would much rather take some shots at some of these other guys. Andrew Carr, he's 7,500. He's kind of up and down recently. You save $300, but you get to that forward position. Miami, they have Omier. They have Miller, who's more of a stretch forward type. This is a spot that Carr could do some damage. He is a GPP option only. Could he put up a 22? Absolutely, but he could definitely put up a 30 for you. At 7,500, you would take that. Anything more than that, obviously he's cooking into the 4x, over 4x value. So don't mind him. The guy that I really like at forward, though, you're going to have to spin down even more, which is awesome. He's 4,300. That's Bobby Klintman. He just probably needs to be playing more, and he has been recently. So, yeah, I think I'll have some shares of him in this game environment. Have some 20s here recently. Can be hit or miss, right? But I do like him for GPPs. I don't know that I can go to Davian Williamson down at 3,300. That's a little scary for me, but it wouldn't be surprised me if he popped off for 18 in this type of game environment. But for me, I'm really focusing on Appleby. I'll take a shot on 1 out of 20 on Monsanto. May take 1 or 2 shots on Carr in maybe a game stacking environment with Appleby, and I'll also have Klintman with Appleby as a game stack. I have been burned too many times on too many core fours over the last 2 to 3 weeks to roster Cameron Hildreth. Jay, are you going to bite this bullet, and am I jumping off at the wrong time?
Well, the short answer is yes, but first of all, I'm old enough to remember when you could get Monsanto for 6K and it was a 5X. You could just write it in for 2 straight weeks. We talked about taking advantage of it then, and now you're really having to pay up for that ceiling at 7,800. That's tough. It's tough to want to do. But, yeah, Mike, I am in on Hildreth, and you saw it last time out. Looked a little better, got 29 spot there. He chips in all over the place, whether it's steals, whether it's blocks. He gets chippy with some assist here every now and then. The perfect storm for Hildreth can line up, and he's the kind of guy at 7,500 where if you wanted to get a bunch of involvement in this game, you can even stack a Hildreth with a Klintman, and I would be a big fan of that because of what you're going to get overall between the two, and it's just it's not even 12K between those two to get the production that you could get out of them here. You love the usage rates for Hildreth, the rebound rate, 20% combined rebound rate. So it's just a matter of, is it going to click? The good thing is for me, I don't feel like he's going to be owned because of the reasons that Mike said. I think a lot of people are going to shy away from him. So I'm going to be in on Hildreth at least a little bit. And this is a good spot, big time total. If you get a little bit of extra time, a little overtime here in this type of a game, a guy like Hildreth that does a little bit of everything, those points really add up. And at 7,500, it allows me to feel even more comfortable stacking something up on this same side with Klintman.
I'm so pot committed to it. It feels like if he goes for a 36, I'm just going to have a rough Saturday. But I don't know, man. Like I might just have to play 1 out of 20 just so I can watch that one lineup.
Yes.
To enjoy my afternoon. Yeah.
It's definitely a tough spot with Hildreth, especially when we're pot committed like we have been. And Mike, you mentioned it, right? Every time that you've been playing him, those are the 10s and 17s in his game log. And then when you jump off, that's when he's getting into the mid upper 20s, and that 30 plus is definitely coming. So even if you're a little snake bit, don't mind, kind of walking back your exposure. But Hildreth feels like he should be in a pretty solid spot overall. And I like the Clintman call, right? He kind of has shades of Monsanto, right? Someone that we're getting into the Wake side at a really reasonable price tag. If he keeps playing the way that he will, the way that he has been, he'll probably see that number increase. But specifically coming in with that 22% combined rebound rate, Miami is allowing they are 255th in opponent offensive rebound percentage. So they're giving up some extra opportunities there for a guy like Clintman at 4.3K. If he gets a board and a putback, that's a pretty big sequence for a guy with a price tag that low. We will move over to the Hurricane side of this affair. Miami comes in with a 21-5 record. They are 12-4 there in the ACC. Ken Palm has a lot to say about the offensive side of the ball. They're 8th in offensive efficiency, about league average on the defensive side, and playing at the 125th fastest tempo in the country. So they are getting paced up a little bit. They also feature our cover boy tonight. So, Mike, is that where you're starting with the Canes?
No, I'm going to start with Norchad. And because it's the matchup, man, like you just talked about, how weak Miami is giving up opponent offensive rebounding percentage. Well, Wake Forest is pretty weak, keeping opponents off of their defensive rebounding side. They're 302nd in offensive rebounding percentage, so opponents are just grabbing boards left and right. No second chance opportunities there. So I like Omier. He has a 40% combined rebounding rate, a 5% block rate, which one of Wake Forest weaknesses, again, they're 331st in the country in opponent shot block. So yeah, sign me up for some Norchad. That price tag is a little tough to swallow at 8,800. He stays out of foul trouble. I feel like he could be primed for a high 30s game. He's been outside of the 13 last game, 35, 39, then another 18 and a 36. So it's definitely boom or bust with him. This is a good spot. It profiles well, right? But for $800 cheaper, you can slide down to Jordan Miller, and I just never get this guy right. I don't get it, man. Like, it's the same with Hildreth, right? Like, we know the type of talent they are. They're definitely GPP options. He's only got a 20% usage rate, but he just does so many different things, kind of like Hildreth. So would it surprise me if he put up a 40? No. Would it surprise me if I clicked his name and he scored 22 fantasy points? No. So definitely a GPP option. Like we said, pricing it's kind of ugly to spend that much on Miller, but I mean, you can pretty much play who you want with 2 or 3 value plays that have kind of come alive here. The guy that I'm really going to be focusing on is going to be Nigel Pack. He's 6,900. Man, finally doing what we thought he was going to do. 3 of the last 4 games has kind of been in that low 30s. He's 6,900. I can see him touching a 35 to 38, and obviously at a shade under 7,000, that's going to get the job done. So yeah, I'm going to be going here to Pack, and he shoots a ton of threes. Wake Forest, they're 304th in opponent 3-point rate, so they're going to give up 3-point opportunities, and Pack's been knocking them down. So definitely like Nigel Pack here. I've definitely played him a lot more than I have Isaiah Wong this year, mostly because of price. 8,600, man. Like I don't know for Wong, but we know you could probably nuke in this spot. Jay, are you dipping into the Wong here?
Well, it's tough because I normally don't like to invest a ton in players that this is the most expensive he's been in like a month, and I don't normally like to grab a player at that point when I'm looking for that sort of value. So he's, like you said, Mike, the opportunity is there, and he can just go nuclear and win you something. But the downside is if I'm paying 8,600 and I get one of these 23s, 27s, it's not going to get it done for what I need to bring home that bread. So it worries me a little bit. But again, this is another one of those instances where if you're looking to be a little bit different, I do think that the ownership will be driven down a little bit because this is the most expensive that he's been in about a month. And again, it's one of those things where you shouldn't probably play Wong in 30 or 40% of your lineups or anything like that. But I think throwing him in the right instance, and especially if you get a cheaper stack early on in the Wake side, and Wong can be somebody, especially without as many big time forwards to pay up for. If you're really wanting to get in this game and hope for that just absolute grand slam, Wong is the kind of guy that can get it done in this sort of a situation.
Definitely feels like there are a lot of things that are, setting up for a nice day in the office for Wong and for a lot of the Canes side. Mike, before we get out of this game, what's your sort of overall approach to this one? Are you going stack and run back? You looking at more kind of one by one? Maybe some one-off pieces. What's kind of the macro thought for this game in particular?
Yeah, I mean, if Kim Pong's telling me 162 and it goes under to 155, I still want 3 or 4 pieces from this game. So I'm going to have a hard time not, going 2-1, 2-2. I like what Jay just brought up. You play someone like Hildreth and Klintman, and then you run it back with Wong. That's pretty salty. The thing that kind of scares us too about Miami is they just have a ton of guards, right? So one of them gets in foul trouble, that's pretty scary. But that's going to hopefully drive Wong's ownership down. And, Wong could go for 45 here. Wake Forest, 153rd in defensive efficiency. Neither one of these teams top 100 in defensive efficiency, and they're both top, 30 in offensive efficiency. So there's going to be some points scored, some assists that are going to be handed out. So, these guys like Wong, Appleby, Hildreth, Nigel Pack, these guys profile really well in this game. But it always feels like there's one of these forwards, like a Carr, an Omier, or even a Miller who's listed at guard. They could break out with a double-double, and it wouldn't be surprising. So, yeah, there's going to be some fantasy goodness in this one. If it goes way under, I mean, there's not a lot of totals that are, ever at this point that we ever talk about over 160, right? And this is a slate where there's not a lot of totals over 140. So it's going to be really hard. If you kind of go 1-1 or, just one off this game, good luck, and you somehow get a 138 in this spot, I'll just move on. I'll move on to the Tuesday slate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And according to Ken Palm, if you get that nightmare scenario, you get that 138 on this game, you're still kind of right pacing along with the rest of the games on the board, right? Most everything else are in the low 140s or in the high 130s for tomorrow. So definitely appreciate the concept of going overload on this game that's projected to run into the 160s. We will move on to our second showcase game. This actually features a team that you were talking about earlier today on Better Sports Network. That is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. You're making a point about the overall strength of the Big 12 and how one of the bottom feeder teams in the conference could maybe string together some wins and actually steal the conference tournament. These Red Raiders are heading to West Virginia to face off against the Mountaineers. That game carries a 145-point implied total. West Virginia is favored in that one, 76-69. We will again start with the underdog. Those Red Raiders, those very dark horses to win the Big 12 conference tournament, they're coming in at 14-12, 3-10 in that very tough conference. Ken Palm has them as the 74th rated offense, the 47th rated defense, and they're about middle of the road in pace, but it feels like they're starting to get some things to click a little bit down here on the stretch run. So any players that might be, sort of coming on here down the stretch that you think are worthy of our attention tomorrow, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, from the Texas Tech side, right? Fardaws Aimaq, he's a little intriguing just because of what he did last game. And, 27 fantasy points. We know this guy, it can be an absolute beast if he had just been healthy. If he'd been healthy all season, I mean, there'd probably be 9 teams in the from the Big 12, or at least, Texas Tech would be among the 8 that are projected to get into the, the field of 68. So A little bit of interest just from that large field GPP standpoint, right? We know his rates are insane when he's on the floor, man, even in limited sample size. So I might take a shot here. I'm not going to go obviously overboard or crazy, but 29 minutes in the last game, I mean, he was a double-double machine at Utah Valley. So a few more minutes there, and it would not surprise me if he popped off for 32 to 35. So, yeah, AMAC, man, like this might be the cheapest that he gets for the rest of the year. So I'm going to take a shot or two on him. And you look at the guys that have kind of been there all year, right? Like Yevo Banner, he's now 8,100. I don't think I can get there. It's a little too rich for my blood, especially with AMAC, kind of coming along here. Bacho is still questionable, so that just if he gets thrown in there, that's another guy that kind of screws up this forward rotation. But for 8,100, I'd rather just spend my money elsewhere. Now he has been playing well at a 35 last game. There's a 29 and a 45 in there in the last 5. So, can he get it done? Absolutely. It's a tough road environment. West Virginia really needs to win this game to avoid maybe falling towards that bubble position. So O'Banner, like I'm okay if you want to fire off one on him. Davion Harmon, I don't know what happened to him last game against Texas where he decided that he was going to make every 3 that he took because he was shooting like 25% coming into the game. But high usage rate, high shot rate, high assist rate, 3% steal rate. He kind of needs to take over right now, and he's been 30 plus in 4 of the last 5. So at 7,300, you don't mind that. Probably the safest of all the options, more of a single entry or cash game play. Definitely don't mind him at all. I think what was interesting is last game, DeMaurian Williams is the bare minimum, and he kind of got some run last game, which is interesting. Now, obviously, with all this other value that's kind of popped up over the last, over the last hour, I don't know that we really want to get there. He's gotten 22 minutes. He's not a high usage player or anything like that. So you're kind of just wishing, right? Whereas you could probably just spin the wheel with the Illinois guys, spin the wheel with a lot of the Florida guys that are cheap. So if you want to get creative and you're trying to game stack this game, he's a way to be different. But I think you want to get into obviously the main key cogs here. Jalen Tyson, I don't know, Jay, you got him on the other night, man, and he did pretty well for you. I struggle to play him because he's such a boom bust play, and I just have a hard time paying $300 more for him over Harmon or $500 more over AMAC. What's your take on Tyson?
I hit him on the right night. I was playing one of the late night slates, and he did well for me about a week ago. And that's sort of the price that I'm a lot more comfortable rostering him at, around 7K, 7.1K. Now that we're getting up here with the 7,600, it's starting to get a little bit the boom bust aspect of this. I need more out of it. Not that I'm saying I'll avoid him 100%, but this is just another if we're going to just watch the world burn, and let's just go ahead and do Wong, let's do Tyson, let's do Hildreth, let's just do all of our guys, let's throw them all in there and just watch it all burn to the ground. Why not? Why not now? It's 10K, baby. But really though, like again, this is another guy that won't. Not a lot of people are going to be paying up for this at 7,600. You're going to have to get creative. Paying for this price for him, and I don't know that I'm totally bought in on it at this price, but he does a lot of stuff well. Again, can really score the basketball. I mean, basically, you're wanting that double upside that he flashes consistently, and chips in a steal here and there too. So it's very. Especially since he was good for me the other night, it's enticing to want to run it back with him because even at that price, he's probably got to get into that 37, 40-ish range to make me feel really great about it at this price, and I just don't know if he can get there. But it's this is going to be a great game to watch. It's going to be a great environment. I'm actually a little worried about this being on the underside of this total, like even under 140, and that might scare me away a little bit from Tyson as well because I'm not wanting to necessarily go for that sort of home run in that instance when I'm not
Yeah.
feeling like this game's going to get to that total.
Yeah, Jay, not a bad take overall, right? We got two teams here that are inside the top 50 in the defensive ranks, and they are right around league average in pace, right? So they're not running and gunning. They're pretty strong defensively. So definitely not mad at the undercall there. Want to go back to the Miami game for a second. We got Jody checking back in, paying some compliments to Miller for his consistency, 27 points plus in DFS. Sounds like he's going with the Miller, Poplar, Clintman stack. Mike, Jay, any thoughts about that approach? I know you talked about that wide rotation of guards for Miami. Poplar definitely fits into that mix. You think something like this might be an interesting way to get into that game and save a little bit of money?
It's definitely contrarian because you're fading the top 4 guards in the game. I mean, Appleby, Hildreth, Wong, and Pack. So if you think all 4 of those bomb in this total, I'm okay with that. You may want to add one of those in if you're playing those 3. Yeah, I don't know. Poplar, like, yeah, I don't know, man. It just feels like one of the 2 studs, maybe even 3 of them are going to go off.
Yeah, but if you guess right here, it really pays off, especially at Poplar's price. Like if you guess right in the right instance, I could understand wanting to get more pieces of that game at that total. Like I understand wanting to go down that well a little bit, and especially when pairing him with Clinton in there with that value. Might have to mix it in.
Yeah, I think the point to underscore is that the Poplar play specifically carries a fair amount of risk, but it's also a really unique way to get into that side of the game, right? So if you are max or at least multi-entering, don't mind sprinkling a little bit of Poplar there in your exposure whatsoever. We will get back on track with our second game here, back to the other side of this game with Tech and West Virginia. That is the West Virginia Mountaineers. They are coming in at 15-11 overall. They are at 4-9 in the conference. Talked about their defensive ranks earlier, 45th in that regard. Even better on the offensive side, 19th in offensive efficiency. And again, about league average in tempo. And Jody coming right back at us. Mike, a lot of projected points for West Virginia here. Who's doing the scoring if as you see it on this side of the game?
Yeah, well, thanks for all the questions in the comments, Jody. If it's not me, I hope it's you that are, sorry guys, that wins the 10K tomorrow.
See myself out.
Yeah, West Virginia. 76 points. Like, yeah, you're probably gonna want a piece here. This is more of a one-off setting for me, guys. Eric Stevenson is a guy that can go nuclear, and you just never know when it's going to happen, or he can absolutely just go away and disappear and hide on the bench or hide on the court. So, 20 lineups in this large of a field, yeah, I'll take one shot out of 20 on Stevenson. It happened the other day when he went for 52, and we were like, I think he was like 3% owned on that slate. And we're like, that was the one when the volcano erupted. If all Huggy Bear could just leave him out there, per se, kind of like a Janai Bloom, you leave the guy out there for 35 minutes, good things tend to happen. Kind of a Stevenson thing. That's the thing we complained about Stevenson last year on South Carolina. Is like he wasn't playing. Like, play him. He's pretty good. So, all right, to get off the soapbox on Stevenson here, we'll slide down to Kedrian Johnson. Man, I was playing this guy at 50, 500, 6K, like not that long ago. So the rotation's scary, but the minutes for him have kind of been there recently. So, I could take a shot here at 5,100. He hasn't shot well over the last couple of games. So he sees, as my guy Eric likes to say, a few more buckets go through the hoop, or a few more. What is it? Was a few more? I don't even know the term to use. I love it though. He could definitely set it off at 5,100. So could I see him dropping a 30? Absolutely. He's definitely a one-off GPP type option. Joe Toussaint's that same factor. One of these 3 guards could legitimately go for 5 or 6X, and it would not surprise me. You would just literally have to spin this wheel and hope it lands on the right one to figure out, 1, who's actually going to make their shots, 2, who is actually going to be on the floor, and 3, this could completely fail. But for Toussaint, high usage rate, high assist rate, he went for 23 last game at 4,200. Start doing the math there. Sounds like a pretty good price. So you could he's one of these salary saving guys. You can play 3 salary savers and get up there into the, a couple of 7K guys and a couple of 9K guys. So yeah, Toussaint's someone that's in the pool. So I do like Johnson and Toussaint. I'm going to just essentially 5 out of 20, just kind of rotate these guys, 6 out of 20, rotate these guys in. There's no game stack for me here. Like Trey Mitchell was great, kind of beginning of the year, middle of the year, been okay, kind of tailing off towards the NJ. We know a lot about his game. The minutes just haven't quite been there. What's your thoughts on old Trey?
No, that's the point that I was going to make, man, is the minutes. I need him to play 30. I can't have him in that 20 to 22 range. If he's in there, if there's too many of these games in the 20s where he's not fouling out of games or anything like that, but he's just not getting the run. And I think this is a good opportunity for him to finally, get out there. If he plays 32, 33 minutes again, like, of course, we like to say, oh, if you play the guy more, but it's true with Mitchell. Mitchell needs that run, that consistent run. If he's in and out or he's just getting chopped off, or his minutes are just getting chopped off, he's not going to get the best out of him. And the potential is there with everything that he does. If he's getting the steals, if he's getting a block here and there, if the rebounds are there. Texas Tech gives up is 251st in opponent offensive rebound percentage. You're going to need Trey Mitchell at this price to be at the ceiling of his rebounding, and that kind of sets up nicely with this matchup. This is more of a GPP play here. Decent price, 6,800. It's hard to know with the ceiling. Okay, you look not too long ago and you see a 35. And then before that, though, you saw a 7 and a 7. So it's tough, but the price makes it intriguing. It's not like you're paying 7,400, 75 for this sort of uncertainty. It almost is they're like begging me to play Trey Mitchell here, and I'm probably going to oblige in a couple lineups.
Yeah, not mad at that at all. You mentioned the favorable matchup in terms of rebounds. That definitely should give a little bit of boost to Mitchell. We also are looking at a team in Texas Tech that is 324th near the bottom of the league in opponent 3-point rate. So guys like Stevenson, guys like Mitchell that are shooting nearly 40% from range, definitely feel like they should get a boost there. Mike, before we move off this game, now that we're in conference play, we don't have to go too far back to find the the most recent matchup between these teams. Trey Mitchell is a guy that had a kind of a rough outing. Same thing with Kadarian Johnson here in the last game against Texas Tech, whereas Stevenson and Toussaint were a little bit closer to their ceilings. Do you put much stock into the game logs from that last matchup, or does that maybe act as kind of a tiebreaker if you're making a decision between one or two guys?
Nah, it's a tough road game at Texas Tech, so I don't even really pay attention to that. So now back at home, pivotal game, the crowd's going to be going nuts. They need this one because guess what? The schedule doesn't get any tougher once Texas Tech leaves for the last few games, so they definitely need this one.
They definitely do. We will move on to our third showcase game. Before we do, we want to hear from you guys in the chat. If you're checking in on YouTube, hit those like and subscribe buttons and jump up in those comments. Jody's keeping the comments flowing. We'll definitely flash those on the screen. We want to hear from you on this Texas Tech and West Virginia side specifically. Which are the players that you are prioritizing? Let us know in the comments. Also, drop any questions that you might have in there. Jody's letting us know he's firing about 15 rounds at the mini max, or rather at the pull up, and looking at maxing the mini, going for a couple of bracket bonanza seats as well. So we'll be in there in the mix with you, Jody. Our third showcase game, we are heading to a matchup in the ACC that is Boston College heading to Florida State. So this one carries a 143-point total. Should be a little bit closer, 73-70 in favor of Florida State. Boston College comes in as the underdog. They are 12-15 on the season, 6-10 in conference play. Pretty poor on the offensive side, 245th in that efficiency. A little bit better, about around league average in the defensive regard, and they're playing pretty slow pace overall, 207th in tempo. Another team that's being impacted by pricing. It feels like, everywhere we look, we're seeing those numbers go up and up. But there are a couple of guys that feel like they've got a pretty good path to value, Mike. Which guys sort of fit that bill for you?
Yeah, you got some cheapies on here for Boston College, but just because they play a little bit slower and just because they're not good on offense doesn't mean their opponent doesn't play fast and is terrible on defense. So that's exactly what they're getting with Florida State, who's pacing them up with the 98th in, tempo and 252nd defensive efficiency. So this makes me like this game. Quentin Post, 8,500. I don't mind going here. The guy's an animal, so getting a softer matchup here. His rates are crazy. He's probably going to destroy these guys. Could he pay off the 8,500? Yeah, I could see him getting a 40. So definitely can do that. I don't know how many people are going to go to him either. You're probably at that price point at 40. You're probably going to want to go all the way up to the top there. A lot of people are probably going to be rostering TJD and Sheepway, who we'll talk about later. So, yeah, I like Post for large field GPP. Then you slide down Mekhi Ashton Langford. He's 8,300. I will never pay this price for him. So if he goes crazy and beats me, I'm on to Sunday and Tuesday and whatever other day. I just can't do it, man. Like, the ceiling feels like it's 35, 36, 37. Like, so I'm not going to pay 8,300 for that. I would rather pay $200 more for Post, who can give me a 40 or a 45. So, MAL, I'm off on him. I would rather save the cash and go down $3,200 to Jaden Zachary, who can get you in the mid-20s and maybe pop off for a 30 at 5,100. So, am I going to go there? Probably not, because he's at a weirder price point where you're going to look at the slate and you're going to see all these guys at guard that are cheap. And getting him at 5,100, it just feels like you're just begging for him to go ceiling. Maybe in a game stack, like if you want to stack him in Post, that's okay. But he's got one of these cheap guys on his team, a couple of them actually. Mason Madsen, he's 3,900, back-to-back 20 pieces, and the guy that hasn't shot well from three, but he hosts a lot of them up, right? Florida State, man, they're terrible on the glass. They're 315th in opponent three-point percentage, so a little bit of a boost there. They give up a ton of threes. They're 272nd in opponent three-point rate, and they're giving up a ton of assists. So it just feels like this is a really nice spot for Post, for someone cheaper like Zachary or even Madsen here. So don't mind going, maybe a 2-1 on this side. Or the pricing is okay on the other side too, even a 2-2. You're really hoping that first game goes under, right? Or if you pick the right, 2 or 3 pieces in that first game. So you can attack this game however you want, because look, Florida State's not great defensively. So love the Boston College side here. There's also a kid, McLaughlin, man, that he's 3,800, just $100 cheaper, Jay. Kind of tough with all the value guards on the slate, man. You see a way to get different?
Yeah, and he was in the starting lineup last game and a few games ago. He's getting the minutes, like the minutes are there the last few games, 21, 17, 27, whereas before that there's a little bit of the old bench skis, not barely breaking double digits. When the opportunity's there at this price, Madsen has been having some of these games that you would want to get out of McLaughlin at this same price. So I'm good either way of those. Using those two guys to get another piece of this game is a really, really smart play. McLaughlin chips in a couple of steals, gets a block here and there, 30% combined rebound rate, which you really got to like, especially when those minutes are on the rise. And, if you wanted to get crazy and get in low a couple of times in this game, with what this total could be, I just think Madsen is going to probably end up continuing to play more minutes. But if it works out like McLaughlin had 27 minutes at Pitt last time out, and if he's hitting on all cylinders, he went 2 for 9, so it wasn't the most efficient night for him. If he hits a couple more of those shots, it might even, and he still had just over 14 points, fantasy points. So McLaughlin and Madsen are both awesome ways to get pieces of this game. And you probably definitely think about stacking up if you're going to get more than one piece. Those are two great ways to go about it.
To say the least, Mike, you teed it off on the top of this game. Boston College is the side that's getting paced up, so they have that going in their favor. But also, just about every category on the board is getting a bit of a boost in this matchup, right? There are favorable matchups for the offensive glass, for three-point rate, like you mentioned before, even on assists per field goal, right? So, everybody that contributes on the Boston College side should get a little bit of boost. Whenever that's the case, I tend to look towards these lower price players, right? They just need a little bit of an uptick to really have a big day. And I think the point that you underscored is the one that stands out for me, right? Most people are going to be looking to the value guards. So McLaughlin is an interesting way to pivot off that. But also those that are looking to spend down in the forward spot are probably going to the other side of this game, which is where we will head now. Florida State Seminoles, 8-19 on the season, 6-10 in conference play, 153rd on the offensive side, so right around league average there. Pretty woeful defensively, 252nd in that regard, playing at the 98th fastest pace, so they are doing the pacing up here. There's probably going to be some pretty popular plays on this side. I sort of teased it with a low cost forward. Mike, where you want to start for the Seminoles?
At some point, this team is going to put up some fantasy points. So I'm really hoping it's this game because I really want to. Yeah, one day, man. Really want to get a one-off scenario here. I mean, Caleb Mills, is there a reason why he's not scoring 30 to 35 fantasy points? It's pretty well, mostly because they're getting blown out. But his rates are insane. He hasn't shot well from three this year. And large field GPPs, I will take a shot at him and Darren Green, honestly. I just feel like they're too talented really to not have a blow up spot. So if I'm playing 20 lineups, I'm not rotating through all 20. Essentially, maybe 6 of those 20, I will plug one in just for this large field 10K to first because you're going to get them at basically no ownership. Darren Green, he's 6,300, and we know that he could hit 6 or 7 threes. That's what he's going to have to do. He's taking 205 this year, shooting almost 40% from three. Doesn't do much else, so if he's not knocking down his shots, it's going to have a real hard time. But he's definitely someone that can really set it off at 2-3%. Jalen Morley, look, I just don't – somebody that has a 16% usage rate and a 12% shot rate. Even though he completely buried me the other day with his ceiling game, I just don't see that happening again. I would rather go to Baba Miller. I think a lot of this has to do with, Matthew Cleveland. But even so, look, we got Cleveland with the questionable tag, but Baba Miller, we waited half the year for him to get cleared from his the stupid stuff that happened over the offseason, with the NCAA not clearing him, even though he gave the money back. The whole thing was ridiculous. So it feels like they don't really have much to play for, so why not give this kid some run? 27 fantasy points in that last game. It feels like he should get 30 minutes in this spot. I don't see why he wouldn't. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Why are we holding back on him? So, I'll take some shots on Baba Miller for sure. I don't know, man. It's kind of scary, Jay. You have any interest in Matthew Cleveland? I mean, he's pretty consistent, getting into high 30s and 40s if he's healthy. Would you be willing to take a shot if they said he's cleared?
I've got a lot of interest in him, and I think that people that are setting some of their lineups early on are going to be a little bit scared off. I think he's going to play, and I think he's going to have another one of these huge nights that he's had. He's had a 43 and a 41 in his last 3, and just missed the one game, like you said, with the back issues, Mike. The upside is what I'm paying for here. Obviously, we've seen it the last couple of times out, but then, that little guy? Wouldn't worry about that little guy. We did see the 16 spot from Cleveland a few games ago, obviously. Can't afford to have that at this price, but I am interested in Cleveland, especially in an instance where I could look right across and then stack him up with McLaughlin, do a little one-on-one action on this game for that price. I'm really liking that with the McLaughlin stack possibility. Cleveland's the focal point of the team. Okay, he's their guy. This is not a great team. Obviously, their record will tell you that, but this is their best guy. And the ownership's going to be driven down. A lot of my guys tonight are guys that I feel like are not a lot of people are going to play them. So why not get a
large field GPP, man? Like,
yeah, get a little freaky, like Giannis likes to say, and like he's got all those new trademarks now, and play a little Matthew Cleveland here. Questionable tag, yes, obviously. Pay attention as you know. Follow at Get Green Screens, and we're going to be updating as we get stuff in. But I'm comfortable playing Cleveland Mike and Eric, and I think that he's going to pay off that price tomorrow.
Yeah, targeting guys that are carrying that questionable tag, especially in the early slate of games. If we get news that he's in there, I mean, his ownership is going to be next to nothing, and he certainly has the ceiling to be impactful on the game. Mike, I want to go back to the BC side. We talked a bit about McLaughlin already. We talked about Mason Madsen. We've got another low-cost guard. That's Kelly. Jody wants to know what your thoughts on Kelly for the BC side are.
Yeah, I agree with the comment. I mean, sneaky as well. I mean, it's kind of similar to what you find with Illinois, where it's just like spin the wheel. I think obviously Kelly and Madsen clear past if you want to be different. McLaughlin. The problem with McLaughlin is the post there, who is probably going to completely dominate this game. But hey, foul trouble or something like that. This is why you got to do something different when you play this many teams for 10,000. So. I like Jay, where it's like McLaughlin and Cleveland. No one's going to have that. And if you just play guys that are popular throughout the rest of your lineup, that's going to be enough to be set you off with the different type of lineup. So, I like that call, Jay. I'm someone that's probably going to go to like a Darren Green, right? And, I wouldn't mind spinning the wheel on Kelly either. I like Madsen a little bit more here, just with, just with the way that Madsen likes to chuck threes, right? And then I just look at Florida State, and it's like, okay. Kelly's shooting, I think he's shooting under 30% as well from three. I think Madsen's a better shooter. So, I'd rather take some shots there. But, yeah, I don't mind it at all if you want to play Kelly. Like, there's some cheap options on this BC side, and it's a game that we like, obviously, since we're talking about it.
Kelly definitely in the rotation, and especially, Jody, like you mentioned, you're going to be multi-entering tomorrow, someone to have in the pool and to rotate around. We will carry forward and round out the rest of our player pool. Theme of the night has been pricing overall. It seems like everyone is seeing their price go up, including some of the guys that are in the top tier. Mike, you kind of teased it before, but we've got guys that are well into the 11Ks on the board tomorrow, right? So of those most expensive guys, which are the ones that you are including in the player pool?
Yeah, you got to put TJD in there. At this point, man, like I gave up so much money not playing this guy over the last 2-3 weeks because all he does is put up a 50. So I'm okay playing 11.5, especially with all the value that we're about to talk about in this low tier. And we've already talked about a ton of it already. So, yeah, just sign me up. He destroyed Illinois in that first matchup at Illinois. I think he went for like almost 60. So, yeah, I don't mind. Like, if he has a bad game compared to the 60 and goes for 52, I'm still okay with 11.5. A little bit cheaper options in that, over 7,500 tier, like Anthony Black against Florida. Can get up and down. It can get you a 40 spot at 7,900. So if you're not really looking to pay up for, some of the guards like Cleveland, like Appleby, and you want to get a little bit lower and not have a risk of Hildreth, Anthony Black is there. Matthew Mayer with Terrence Shannon out. I mean, now he's 7,800, and they're going to have to use him. Like, he's a guy that can score, put the ball in the basket for him. It's a challenge for high 30s in minutes. We know he has 40 fantasy point upside. They're going to need it all for him. This is a pretty big game between Illinois and Indiana. So the reason we didn't profile this one in our showcase games because really it comes down to, for me, it's Matthew Mayer and then the spin the wheel and the guards, and then on the other side it's TJD and someone that we'll talk about in the mid tier. So there's not really too many options in this game that I really want to go to. But yeah, these are some of the guys that I'm looking at. Skipped over a guy, Jay, that man, I don't ever get right. So who are you? I think I got him right once in the last couple of weeks. What about you?
No, I haven't. I have not nailed down the Sheboy play yet this year at all. Actually, um, second highest cost for active players on this slate. Um, Only one ahead, obviously, TJD. This is a play for me that this is, again, with TJD, it's the guaranteed ceiling or that guaranteed floor that we feel like we're going to get. With Sheboy at 9,800, it's the atmosphere. It's the type of game that big-time players show up in that make me feel like this could be the right play tomorrow for him. Home game, big matchup against Tennessee, who's coming off, obviously, playing well. And he went for 36 in that first matchup, but 36 fantasy
That's an
points,
ugly game.
super, super ugly game. And Kentucky at home, they really need it. They've got to have it. Or they've got to, I mean, it's getting down to it for Kentucky. They've got to have it here. Sheboy in a big spot, 9,800. If you're not as comfortable spending 11.5K for TJD, the ceiling that Sheboy is going to bring, he's going to hopefully get to that ceiling tomorrow for us. It's just kind of a weird spot, but I think I'm going to try to get it right this time with Sheboy.
Yeah, Sheboy is definitely one of those players that, anytime he's sub 10K, he's always going to raise an eyebrow and get a little bit of interest. And going back to some of the players that you mentioned, Mike, I really like Matthew Mayer, right? I mean, I've got a soft spot for guys that are eligible at both positions. That's always going to be something that's, a favorite of mine. But also, I think with the Shannon news, most people are going to try to go spin the wheel in the value options on the Illinois side. I don't think Mayer is going to get as much ownership as he should. So definitely like those calls there. Jody's checking in, got an update. He's ran some lineups, 100% Appleby, 50% TJD out of 20 lineups. So that's what
that might be a tease for the Core Four. I don't know. We'll see for the yeah.
It very well might be.
Might see two of those guys. Both of those guys.
Speaking of a tease, we've got someone new, Cameron, checking in. Cameron, appreciate you swinging through. Hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Wants to know on the betting side if there are any bets that he can potentially string together in a parlay. Anything catching your eye there, Mike?
Yeah, I like Arkansas. I believe last we checked before the show, they were -9.5. With Castleton out, it just feels like Arkansas is going to beat the brakes off of Florida. I just don't see another guy on Florida's team that I don't know if they can generate off. They could barely generate offense with Castleton. Maybe it opens the floor up a little bit more, but I don't know, man. It feels like this is going to be an ugly one. The Kansas State money line, I believe they're a slight favorite. Don't mind going to that if you get a good price on it. So definitely like that. I like these desperate teams in the Big 12, man. So Kansas State, we called them getting beat last show against Oklahoma. And now it's their turn to kind of get some revenge here. Texas Tech +6.5. We talked about this game on the road to West Virginia. Yeah, it's going to be a tough environment, but backs against the wall for Tech. They strung together some really nice wins, including one against our guys down here in Austin. They need this one, and with AMAC being back and playing 30 minutes, they're an entirely different team with him. So I do like the +6.5 on their side. And then a little more Big 12 action here, man. Oklahoma State and TCU, almost 140 total. Oklahoma State's really good on the defensive end. Miles is coming back. That's Jay's guy right there. But they get into some slobber fest, it's just ugly games. So 140, kind of like the under there. It feels like Oklahoma State's gonna have a really tough time scoring. And TCU's going to have a tough time on the other side with Cisse and some of the tough defense that Oklahoma State plays. So, just a few bets that we like there. If you want to string one of those or two of those together, man, those are kind of the four that really stick out just looking at the board right now. We'll have some more in the morning. Just follow us on Green Screens on Twitter, and we'll drop some more prize picks as well as more bets that we kind of like as we lead up to lock.
We'll definitely make it a point to get those out. Appreciate your questions, Cam. Keep them coming as we round out the show. And Jody checking in from the Bluegrass State saying that he's afraid of Oscar, right?
Yes.
So I mean, it's a big price tag to play for someone that is inconsistent. So definitely understand the concern there. Want to move on to the mid tier. We've talked about it a fair amount here. Feels like there are some pretty good points per dollar plays sitting in this, kind of 5K to 7K range. Mike, how are you attacking the mid tier tomorrow?
Yeah, we talked about Anthony Black, 7,900. If you want to pay 6,800, save yourself 1,100. You can get Devo Davis. Feels like a 30 spots coming. This game against Florida, we talked about we liked them covering. Feels like a couple of these guards are going to go off here. Armand Franklin, he's 6,700, getting the old Notre Dame defense. He's actually been rebounding the ball this year, which is kind of weird, and Notre Dame doesn't like to rebound. So, him and Ben Vanderplas from Virginia, they seem like pretty safer floor plays. More cash game guys, but it wouldn't surprise me if either one of them went for a 35 here, and they're both sub 7K. Alex Fudge, it'll be interesting to see how his role here changes with Castleton being out. So, it feels like he should get some more run. He's obviously a large field GPP option, 5,200. Talent wise at the at the forward position, Florida's a little thin now, so. Somebody's going to have to step up. There's a guy in the low tier that probably going to have a lot of, and I don't know how fun it's going to be. But, Alex Fudge for sure at 5,200. I definitely like him here. Jay, what are your thoughts? You got anybody in this mid-tier range that you got your eye on? Oh, got you on mute, my guy. Hey.
Sorry. So if you're not – I couldn't help myself. If you're a little bit hesitant to pay the 11.5 for TJD, and you want a piece of that Indiana-Illinois matchup, you got to go down to our guy Jalen Hood-Schifino. 6,600. We've been down this road before, I know, and it hasn't always worked out the best for us. But again, if you want a piece of that game at 6,600, when the 25 to 30 point game is there, it's a good environment, a good price. And if I play anybody on Indiana, it's probably going to be Hood-Schifino. But it's just to be different again. I might just go total contrarian and not do it, and we'll see how that one goes. But yeah.
You're either going to score 90 fantasy points tomorrow, or you're going to score 376. It's going to be amazing.
One or the other.
And however you slice it, Jay is going to have about combined 18% rostership across all of his guys. So he's got the contrarian path laid out. But I don't mind the Hood-Schifino call, right? I think TJD is going to be pretty popular, so you're getting leverage pivoting off that. But also, this might be a waning opportunity. It seems like Xavier Johnson is getting closer and closer. So Hood-Schifino might not be as appealing in the games to come. So something to keep in mind there. Cameron doing the Lord's work out there. Sounds like he hit those buttons. We appreciate that. Cameron. And definitely spread the word. We are cranking out college basketball content left and right. So we're breaking down the DFS slate. But we're also going into some futures bets. We're talking mid-majors, talking bubbles, basically anything that you need around the world of college basketball, we got you covered. So appreciate you chipping in, and definitely appreciate you guys spreading
Who cleans the stadiums after the games? We're getting into all kinds of stuff, man.
Everyone. There will be no stone unturned as we get ready for the stretch run here in college basketball. As we head into the stretch run of the show, feels to me like we've been talking about spending a lot of money so far. So we're going to need to find some guys to save a few pennies. Mike, long list here in the low tier, and there are some guys that not only offer salary relief, but also offer some interesting leverage. So round us out. Where are you looking on the salary saver side of the spectrum?
All right. So I guess we'll start here. We usually like to work the way down. We'll start from the bottom here. Starting from the bottom, like my guy Drake here. Jason Jatoba.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. 3K, man.
3K flat. Jody's sniffing it out.
Jeez, man. This is literally such a terrible idea. But man, he doesn't have to do much. They don't really have anybody else. He has to. And every time this happens, I am just sorely disappointed because Alex Fudge is going to go for 31. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to, man. Like, it's just there's no Colin Castleton. They need a big. Like, there aren't too many options. So, 11 fantasy points in that last game, got a little more run there. If he plays 25 minutes and he gives you 12 to 15 fantasy points, you will be elated. I just would not be surprised if he got like a 7.5. So very scary. Man, it feels like Jody here is just kind of calling out a potential core four. So yeah, good stuff. He's going to be super popular tomorrow. I'm going to go to the well. You go to the well on a lot of these Florida guys. Like you go to the guards. Like Reeves is definitely a play at 4K. Kind of like him there. So if you want to slot him in, save you some salary, you can do that. You go closer to the 5K range. You have Vin Allen Lubin. I just wanted to say the name, honestly. Don't know how much I'll have of him. 4,900 playing Virginia. Like Virginia, obviously tough defensively, but they're not great against bigs. So, Lejeski and Vin Allen Lubin, they could do some things in this spot. And Vin Allen Lubin has been starting 23-19, 23-20 in the last 4. That's okay, right? I mean, now these closer to 5K, a little bit tougher. Whoever last man in, if you just find yourself at that annoying 5K range. Andre Jackson, I guess, at this point, I've lost so much money on this guy. You're supposed to sell high. I jumped on when, he was at his highest, and I rode the roller coaster all the way down to the bottom here at 4,900. They need this game against Seton Hall. Seton Hall's desperate. The minutes just quite haven't been there, man. Mid-20s, he's okay. Much rather go down to some of these other guys that we just talked about, like Reeves. You can look at Bosich from Tennessee. Had a pretty good game against Big O. Big body. He could foul out in 6 minutes though, but he's gonna do some banging around in there on the road too. It would not shock me if he fouled out in 10 minutes. But he's in the player pool at 3,600. And then man, some Big 12 guys here, Jay. Tell us about our guy Tyrese Hunter and how we're even at this price point.
In the we just don't know how to quit you segment of the show, we're going to talk about Tyrese Hunter, but it's hard not to at 4.3K. We were talking about wanting to play him, when he is okay. We've seen within the last month he was at 6,200, and now we're all the way down to 4.3K. When we've seen the upside here at 28 fantasy points, even within the last 5 games, we've seen it. And even if you get kind of close to that, you would be elated to have Tyrese Hunter in your lineup. I'm going to tinker around with them a little bit. This Texas. This is every game in the Big 12 is a big one. But this is definitely one of those where how do you pass on this type of talent at this type of price? I just don't know how you don't smash that button, man.
You're paying $7K for him 2 months ago. What are we doing?
Well, we're playing him tomorrow, and if you're smart, at least in some of your lineups, Eddie Lampkin's back for TCU, coming back from injury, just like our guy Mike Miles Jr. And I don't know if I'm going to play either one of those guys tomorrow, but Lampkin's somebody to definitely watch, take a wait-and-see approach, and sort of monitor where that price goes and see what his minutes are going to be like. Actually, both of those guys, Miles, that TCU, I'm going to say it every time you put me on. It was 35-1, and now the last I saw it was 30-1 to win the Natty. So, if you're in on the Horned Frogs, now's the time before these guys get back and this team is clicking on all cylinders. I just don't know if I'm going to play them tomorrow.
Man, hold on, Eric. Hold on. This is the last show you're going to be on, Jason. We don't have to hear that. No, but hey, look, I'm scarred by this low tier because it's all the guys that have climbed down to the price point that I've been burning money on for the last 2 to 3 weeks. So
it's time.
At some point, it's going to happen, right?
It's time.
It's time.
It is time. Jody's picking up what we're putting down. He's ready for us to go some Texas guys his way. Hunter definitely fits that build. And he's going a little supernatural. He wants to know if the ghost of CJ Felder is going to come in and haunt this game.
Oh my
right?
goodness, dude. CJ Felder, man. Yeah. I mean, that could
if-
happen. Like, if he's in, yeah, I'm not going to go 100% Jatobo. I will. I'm not even going to go 100% Jatobo, but I don't know, man. Like this, yeah. This is what usually happens when this type of play opens up. Is I literally will put him in every lineup, and then I just go through there's 5 minutes to go, and I just how many lineups can I get him out of is kind of where it's at. And we didn't talk about the Illinois guys, so before we get out of here, let's spin the wheel. Right, Shannon's out. Mayer's going to get a ton of shots. Yeah, and he could land on Epps at 4,500. You got Rogers at 4,300. Even a Harris at 3,100. If you like Payne and you want to go to Melendez for some reason, I guess you could do that too. Probably not the smartest move there. So, yeah, spin the wheel on Illinois, and good luck on that. So.
Yeah, it's always a little dicey, right? Whenever we got to spin the wheel, not only are there players that can hit and rocket you up the payout list in your tournaments, but there's also a lot of pain on that wheel, right? So definitely running a risk in this low tier overall. Really like the Reeves call, right? I think most people are going to be looking down for those value forwards in Florida, and just in general. That kind of 4 to 5K range, right? There's so many guys sub 4K that I don't think people are going to be quite as often going to that range. So if you're looking to save some money and get a little bit of leverage, guys like Lampkin, guys like Hunter, guys like Lubin are probably not going to be too popular as well. So those are my thoughts from the low tier. Mike, we've talked about pricing a lot. We've talked about how, there's enough value to kind of play whoever you want on this slate. So specifically for your core four, I know that these aren't 100% locked in guys that you're going to have on every build, but in terms of the four guys that you're kind of starting and building around, who's making that pristine list for tomorrow?
Yeah, we need a caveat on this one, because yes, Jatobo is in the core four with a giant asterisk next to it as a wheel, essentially like a wheel right next to it, where you just spin it. You can throw your Illinois guys out there. You can throw Tyrese Hunter on there for Jay. Plenty of guys, but yeah, we'll go with Nigel Pack. Just love the game environment for him. Love how he profiles against them. Love the way he's been playing. Tyree Appleby's in there. Yeah, got to get him in there. Great game environment again. Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, until he shows me he's not going to nuclear this slate, then we got to go to him. And then the Jatobo with plenty of asterisks to it, and find whatever value play you want to spend with that core. But really like Pack, really like Appleby, really like Jackson Davis. But don't forget about the pivots off of those guys, like Long going up to Long from Pack, down to Hildreth from Appleby, going way down, playing maybe like a Shebue instead of TJD and grabbing Jalen Hood-Schifino. These are ways that you get different in large field tournaments and win yourself 10K. So, we'll be playing most of those in my lineups, probably 60 to 75%, and I hope it works out.
Definitely tend to agree. And Jody been keeping us busy in the chat tonight. Sounds like Jody's usually checking in on the replay, but here we're officially in grind season, so here for the live. Definitely appreciate you swinging through.
Thanks, Jody.
As those questions come up, as those thoughts come up, love hearing them come up in the comments and carrying the conversation forward. Mike, Jay, before we get out of here, any kind of overall closing thoughts on what'll be an absolutely fun slate tomorrow?
Hey, what you got, man? I've already said my piece on my core, and I will lay to rest with that core tomorrow.
I'm looking to get different tomorrow. Different's going to win some money. I don't know if it's going to be my kind of different, but I'm looking to get different. So let's get different. Let's do it.
Definitely not afraid to get weird around here. Definitely the path that sounds like Jay's taken. Like I talked about earlier, this is our DFS breakdown, but we are bringing you a ton of content down the stretch run here in college basketball. We'll be back on Sunday, recapping what is sure to be another insane weekend, getting you up to speed on all the news and notes from around the league. And like I talked about earlier, Mike was on Better Sports Network earlier today talking about some college hoops. That's actually going to be a weekly installation. So he'll be there 2:30 Eastern every Friday with lunch money. So if you are not already a member, you're not already checking out Better Sports Network, download that app and get a little bit more college basketball love before we get into the DFS show here. And before we get out of here, Jody's got another thought. Watch for the Tennessee starting five if Phillips is out. Mike, any thoughts about how that news might actually impact the game for the Tennessee side?
Oh man, you're killing me. You didn't even listen to me. This is what I talk about. I go to this whole show, give you guys all the plays, and you don't even listen to my plot hitch, man. Yeah, I mentioned him. He played well against Sheba. He's probably going to have to play well. He's probably going to foul out in 11 minutes. So if you want to pay $3,600 for, it's on the road this time. He might even get thrown out of the game for getting into a fight. That's he's basically Brock Cunningham, but a European 7-foot version and 270 pounds.
Is there a prize pick option for that for flagrant? Over 0.5 flagrants?
Dude, oh my goodness, man! If there was a fouls on Prize Picks, I would have so much money right now. Just play my DFS guys, hedge it against my Prize Picks for fouls, and that's how you
do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Rhodey's agreeing too, man. First time he's had an appearance.
Prize Picks will get a little sideways with it. I saw for the Super Bowl they had a line on Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce combined receiving touchdowns. So maybe they'll sprinkle in some fist fights and some uppercuts thrown. Sounds like there's a bit of a scoring delay on DraftKings tonight. Tay Williams' production hasn't populated yet, so Zach, hang in there. That those stats should make their way in before too long.
I can't do Ivy League Fridays anymore, man. Like Brody can't either. He needs to go outside. Like I got to pay attention to family and the dog every now and then. So Fridays are my day of rest.
What a guy!
I'm coming. Hold on.
And when he says his day of rest, he means his day of researching and grinding for the big Saturday slate, right? So
that's right.
The day of rest has different meanings as we get down the stretch run and into March. March is less than 2 weeks away, right? We're grinding away here. If you are not already, make sure you are following all of our guys here, the captain of our ship, MC Holland34 on Twitter, and the conductor of the Green Screens Media train, Dr. William Cannon on Twitter. Also, if you're looking for a bit of extracurricular work, you head over to drroto.com. That's where you'll find all of Mike's written work on the topic of college basketball. Not only will you get access to that work, but by subscribing and signing up, you get access to our members-only Discord. That is where you'll find the three of us and all of the experts over at drroto.com talking through every sport under the sun, and specifically for college basketball, we are in that Discord talking through picks, finalizing lineups, getting those last-minute news and notes out there because they come 90 seconds before lock every single slate. So if you are not already, get over to drroto.com, get yourself subscribed, get into that Discord, and let's get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.